In the vast ancient landscapes of this continent, a new society was taking root. A society far removed from the familiar structures of the old world. In its earliest days, this fledgling colony, Australia, had no currency of its own. It was a place of improvisation where the very concept of money was fluid, taking forms as peculiar as a bottle of rum. This is a story of ingenuity, a tale of how a nation forged its identity, not in grand monuments or sweeping declarations, but in the small, metallic objects that passed from hand to hand. It is the story of Australia's coinage. From the chaotic bartering on the shores of Sydney Cove to the precision of a modern world-class mint, the journey of these coins mirrors the journey of the nation itself. It's a narrative of adaptation, of overcoming immense distance and scarcity to create order. We will explore how a governor's desperate act of punching holes in Spanish silver gave birth to a continent's first unique currency, and how the fever of a gold rush stamped its mark on the very metal used for trade. This is a story of survival, of growth, and of a unique economic ecosystem evolving in one of the most isolated corners of our planet. Join me, Adil, as we trace this remarkable evolution. We'll witness the transition from a motley collection of foreign coins and promissory notes to a standardized sovereign currency that reflects the unique character, wildlife, and history of Australia. We will see how these humble discs of metal are more than just money. They are miniature chronicles of a nation's life, carrying the portraits of monarchs and symbols of a land unlike any other. This is the intricate and often surprising history of the Australian coin. Our story begins in 1788 on the shores of Port Jackson. The first fleet had arrived, disgorging its human cargo into a world utterly alien to them. With them, they brought supplies, tools, and the rule of British law. But they had neglected one crucial element for building a new economy, an official standardized currency. In this monetary vacuum, the earliest settlers reverted to the most ancient form of commerce known to humankind: barter. A bushel of grain for a pair of shoes, a day's labor for a ration of salted meat. It was a system born of necessity, but it was inefficient and fraught with complications. Into this void stepped a powerful and enterprising group, the New South Wales Corps. They controlled the flow of a particularly valuable commodity, one that was easily divisible, highly sought after, and held its value with remarkable consistency: rum. The spirit became a de facto currency, a liquid asset used to pay for everything from construction to land grants. This rum economy was a testament to human ingenuity in the face of scarcity. Yet it was a system ripe for exploitation, concentrating immense power and wealth in the hands of the officers who became known as the Rum Corps. It was a chaotic and often unjust beginning for Australian commerce. The port of Sydney was a bustling hub of international trade, and with the ships came a bewildering assortment of currencies. Spanish dollars, Dutch guilders, Indian rupees, and British pennies all circulated side by side, a veritable babel of coinage. Each had a different value, a different weight, a different purity of metal. Imagine the challenge for a simple merchant or farmer trying to conduct a fair transaction amidst this confusion. The value of a coin could fluctuate wildly from one day to the next, making stability impossible and hindering the colony's growth. A system was desperately needed to bring order to this chaos. That system arrived in the year 1800 with Governor Philip Gidley King's currency proclamation. This was not the creation of a new currency, but rather a crucial act of standardization. The proclamation took the most common foreign coins circulating in the colony and assigned them a fixed value in British pounds, shillings, and pence. The Spanish dollar, a large silver coin renowned for its quality, was officially valued at 5 shillings. This simple decree was a landmark moment. It provided the first semblance of economic stability, a common language of value that everyone could understand, laying the foundational stone for a more formal monetary system. Though effective, the proclamation was only a temporary solution. It addressed the value of the coins, but not their scarcity. The fundamental problem remained there simply weren't enough coins to go around. Much of the hard currency that arrived in the colony would inevitably leave on the next trading vessel as merchants used it to pay for imported goods. The colony was like a leaky bucket, constantly losing the very specie it needed to thrive. A more permanent and distinctly Australian solution had yet to be found. The stage was set for a truly innovative act of creation. By 1812, the currency crisis in New South Wales had reached a breaking point. Governor Lachlan Macquarie, a man of vision and decisive action, faced the familiar problem. Any shipment of valuable coins that arrived in the colony would quickly vanish, exported by traders to settle international debts. The economy was perpetually starved of a medium of exchange. Macquarie needed a way to not only increase the number of coins in circulation, but also to keep them in the colony. His solution was both audacious and brilliantly simple, a masterstroke of lateral thinking that would give Australia its very first locally produced currency. In 1813, Macquarie took a substantial shipment of 40,000 Spanish silver dollars, the very coins valued at 5 shillings by the earlier proclamation. Instead of simply releasing them into the economy to be drained away, he ordered a convicted forger by the name of William Henshaw to perform a unique act of modification. Henshaw was tasked with punching a hole directly through the center of each and every coin. This act of mutilation was, in fact, an act of creation. It instantly created not one but 2 new coins from the original Spanish dollar, doubling the number of coins in circulation at a single stroke. The outer ring, the larger portion of the coin, was counterstamped around the new central hole with the words New South Wales, the date 1813, and a value of 5 shillings. This became known colloquially and affectionately as the Holy Dollar. It was unmistakably a coin of the colony, its value declared for all to see. Its unique annular shape made it instantly recognizable and, crucially, rendered it worthless as a Spanish dollar in any other port in the world. Its journey and its value were now tied directly and irrevocably to Australia. The small circular piece that was punched out from the center was not discarded. This little disc of silver was also given its own identity. It was re-stamped with a crown, the date 1813, and a new value of 15 pence. This smaller coin became known as the dump. Together, the Holy Dollar and the dump had a combined face value of 6 shillings and 3 pence, 5 shillings for the ring and 1 shilling and 3 pence for the centerpiece. This was a clever economic incentive, as the combined value was 25% higher than the original Spanish dollar's proclaimed value of 5 shillings, strongly discouraging anyone from attempting to export them. The creation of the Holy Dollar and the dump was a pivotal moment in Australian history. It was the first time a currency had been produced specifically for the continent, a tangible symbol of a growing sense of local identity and self-reliance. It was a practical solution to a pressing economic problem born from the unique circumstances of a remote penal colony. These coins, forged from another nation's silver but given new life and purpose on Australian soil, represent the ingenuity and pragmatism that would come to define the character of the nation itself. The era of the Holy Dollar and the dump, while a brilliant and necessary improvisation, was always destined to be a temporary chapter in Australia's monetary story. The colony, despite its vast distance from London, remained fundamentally a part of the British Empire. As the settlements grew and society became more established and complex, the need for a more formal, standardized and imperially recognized system of currency became increasingly apparent. The unique local coins had served their purpose, but the future lay in aligning with the powerful economic heart of the empire. In 1825, the British government took a decisive step to standardize currency across its many colonies. An imperial order in council was issued decreeing that British silver and copper coins were to become the official legal tender throughout its domains, including the Australian colonies. This marked a profound shift. No longer would the economy rely on a motley assortment of foreign silver or locally modified coins. The familiar pounds, shillings and pence of the mother country were to become the bedrock of all transactions. This was a move designed to facilitate smoother trade, not just within the colony but across the entire British Empire. The transition was not instantaneous. For a time, the new British coins circulated alongside the old holy dollars, dumps and the remaining foreign currencies. The government facilitated the change by setting an exchange rate, gradually withdrawing the older ad hoc coinage from circulation. The holy dollars and dumps were officially recalled in 1829, their short but vital reign coming to an end. Their withdrawal marked the end of Australia's first experiment in unique currency, and the beginning of a long period where its monetary system was a direct reflection of its colonial ties to Britain. The adoption of British sterling coinage had significant implications. On one hand, it brought stability and predictability. A shilling in Sydney was now unequivocally the same as a shilling in London, simplifying accounting and international commerce. It integrated the Australian colonies more deeply into the global British economic network, a vital connection for an export-reliant economy. The sight of the British monarch's effigy on the coins in daily use was a constant, tangible reminder of where ultimate authority lay, reinforcing the colonial bond. However, this standardization also meant that for nearly a century, Australia would not have a currency that reflected its own unique identity. The animals, symbols and landscapes of this vast continent would remain absent from its coinage. The currency in the pockets of its people was that of a distant island nation. While the economy had matured beyond the need for makeshift solutions, the journey towards a truly Australian national currency, one that spoke of its own character and sovereignty, was still many decades away. The imperial standard was now the law of the land. The year 1851, well, it really changed everything. The discovery of gold, first near Bathurst in New South Wales and then in even greater abundance in the new colony of Victoria, triggered a societal cataclysm. Suddenly, a torrent of humanity descended upon the goldfields, a flood of hopefuls from every corner of the globe, all dreaming of striking it rich. This massive and sudden influx of population, combined with the staggering amount of new wealth being unearthed from the ground, placed an unprecedented strain on the colony's fragile monetary system. The supply of official British coinage was, honestly, simply overwhelmed. In the frantic, chaotic boomtowns of the goldfields, there was an acute shortage of coins for everyday transactions. Gold dust and small nuggets were often used for payment, weighed out on scales in what was, in a way, a return to a more primitive, commodity-based economy. But this was, frankly, both impractical and unreliable. The purity of the gold varied, and not every merchant had the means to accurately assay the dust offered as payment. The need for a standardized, reliable form of currency was more urgent than ever. And, well, the government in London was just too slow to respond to the explosive growth happening on the other side of the world. In South Australia, the situation was particularly dire. The colony was being drained of its manpower and its currency as men rushed to the Victorian goldfields. To avert a complete economic collapse, the South Australian Legislative Council took a bold and technically illegal step. In 1852, through the Bullion Act, they established an assay office in Adelaide and began striking their own coins. This was the Adelaide pound, Australia's very first gold coin. Struck from local gold, it was a defiant statement of self-preservation, a coin born of crisis and necessity, created without the sanction of the British Crown. The shortage of small change was not limited to the goldfields. Across the growing cities of Melbourne and Sydney, the lack of official copper and silver coins for minor purchases was a major inconvenience. Into this gap stepped enterprising private merchants and businessmen. From the 1850s onwards, they began to issue their own merchant tokens. These were privately minted copper pennies and halfpennies, bearing the name and advertisement of the issuing business, a grocer, a draper, a hardware store. While not official legal tender, they were widely accepted by a public desperate for any form of small change. These tokens were honestly a fascinating chapter in Australian numismatic history. They were a grassroots free market solution to a government failure, with designs that often featured uniquely Australian motifs like kangaroos and emus. They were an early expression of a burgeoning national identity, appearing long before such symbols would grace official coinage. The Gold Rush era, therefore, was a period of monetary fragmentation and innovation. It produced the nation's first gold coin in the Adelaide pound and a vast, diverse array of private tokens, all of which were a direct response to the immense pressures of a society transforming at bewildering speed. The sheer volume of gold being extracted from Australian soil presented a logistical challenge for the British Empire. Shipping vast quantities of raw gold all the way to London to be refined and minted by the Royal Mint was, well, inefficient, costly and perilous. The long sea voyage was fraught with danger, from storms to piracy. A more practical solution was needed, one that would allow the empire to process its colonial wealth closer to the source. The decision was made to establish official branches of the Royal Mint in the Australian colonies themselves. The first of these southern outposts of the prestigious Royal Mint opened in Sydney in 1855. Housed in the southern wing of the old Rum Hospital, its establishment was a landmark event. For the first time, coins of the British Empire were being struck in the southern hemisphere, bearing the full authority of the Crown. The Sydney Mint began producing gold sovereigns and half-sovereigns. These early coins were visually distinct. While they featured the same portrait of Queen Victoria as their British counterparts, the reverse design was unique, proudly proclaiming Sydney Mint and Australia around a crown and wreath. The success of the Sydney Mint, coupled with the continuing torrent of gold from the Victorian fields, led to the establishment of a second branch mint. In 1872, the Melbourne Mint opened its doors. This was a grander, more purpose-built facility, a reflection of Melbourne's immense wealth and status as one of the richest cities in the empire. From 1871, both the Sydney and Melbourne mints began producing sovereigns that were virtually identical to the London-struck versions, distinguished only by a small mint mark, S for Sydney or M for Melbourne, a subtle nod to their Australian origin. The final piece of this triumvirate was established much later in response to yet another gold rush, this time in the vast expanses of Western Australia. The Perth Mint commenced operations in 1899, perfectly timed to process the immense wealth flowing from the Kalgoorlie and Coolgardie goldfields. It too began striking sovereigns and half-sovereigns identified by a P mint mark. Together, these three branch mints, Sydney, Melbourne and Perth, became industrial powerhouses, minting hundreds of millions of gold coins over their operational lives. The establishment of these mints was of profound importance. It cemented Australia's role as a vital component of the imperial economy. The gold sovereigns struck in Sydney, Melbourne and Perth were not a separate Australian currency. They were British pounds sterling, legal tender across the entire empire. They circulated from London to Hong Kong, from Cape Town to Calcutta. The Australian mints were producing a global currency, a tangible symbol of the power and reach of both the British Empire and the immense natural wealth of the Australian continent. The first day of the 20th century, January 1st, 1901, heralded a new dawn for the continent. The 6 separate self-governing colonies united to form a single independent nation, the Commonwealth of Australia. This political federation brought with it the need for national institutions, including a national treasury and, eventually, a national currency. While the Constitution granted the new federal parliament the power over currency, coinage and legal tender, The transition from using British coins to producing a distinctly Australian coinage would take almost a decade to realise. For the first 9 years of its existence, the new nation continued to use British gold, silver and bronze coins as its official currency. The sovereigns struck at the Australian branch mints were still, in essence, British pounds, but the desire for a currency that reflected Australia's newfound sovereignty was strong. In 1909, the Commonwealth Parliament passed the Coinage Act, which finally gave the government the authority to issue its own silver and bronze coins. The Act specified the denominations, weights and compositions, paving the way for the first true Australian coins. In 1910, the very first silver coins of the Commonwealth of Australia were released into circulation. These were the florin, 2 shillings, the shilling, 6pence and 3pence. They featured the effigy of the reigning monarch, King Edward VII, on the obverse. Crucially, the reverse side now bore a uniquely Australian design, the first coat of arms of Australia featuring a kangaroo and an emu supporting a shield. The following year, 1911, saw the introduction of the first Australian pennies and halfpennies, featuring a simple text-based reverse. For the first time, the money in people's pockets was explicitly and proudly Australian. One of the most fascinating stories from this pre-decimal era is that of the 1930 penny. During the height of the Great Depression, economic activity slumped so severely that no official order was given to the Melbourne Mint to strike new pennies for that year. However, a very small number, thought to be around 3,000, were struck, likely to test dies. These coins were never meant for circulation, but some found their way into the public's hands. Their extreme scarcity was not widely known until decades later, transforming the humble 1930 penny into Australia's most famous and sought-after rare coin, a numismatic legend born from economic hardship. The composition of these coins also tells a story. The silver coins were initially struck in 92.5% pure sterling silver, the traditional British standard. However, during the Second World War, the rising price of silver and the need to conserve resources led to a change. From 1946, the silver content of Australian coins was reduced to 50%. This change, born of global conflict and economic necessity, is a reminder that the story of coinage is inextricably linked to the wider currents of world history. These pre-decimal coins served the nation for over half a century, becoming a familiar part of daily life for generations of Australians. By the middle of the 20th century, the world was, moving away from the complex and cumbersome systems of pounds, shillings and pence. The simplicity and efficiency of a decimal system, based on units of 10, was pretty much undeniable. Australia, eager to modernise its economy and, simplify financial calculations for everyone from school children to accountants, decided to make the change. The decision, which was announced in 1963 by Treasurer Harold Holt, set in motion one of the largest and most meticulously planned logistical exercises in the nation's history. The date for the changeover was set for Monday, the 14th of February 1966, a day that would come to be known as C-Day, or Conversion Day. An immense public education campaign was launched to prepare the population. A cheerful cartoon character, Dollar Bill, appeared in newspapers and on television explaining the new system in a catchy jingle. The campaign was, honestly, remarkably effective, teaching an entire nation how to convert their familiar pounds, shillings and pence into the new dollars and cents, where £1 would equal $2, 10 shillings would equal $1, and a shilling would become 10 cents. A crucial part of this transition was the establishment of a new modern minting facility. The old branch mints in Sydney, which had closed in 1926, Melbourne and Perth were not equipped for the sheer volume of coinage required. A new, purpose-built facility was needed. The Royal Australian Mint was constructed in the national capital, Canberra, and was officially opened by the Duke of Edinburgh in 1965. This was the first mint in Australia not to be a branch of the British Royal Mint. It was a truly sovereign Australian institution, tasked with producing the currency for the new decimal era. On Sea Day 1966, the new coins were released to an eager public. The designs were a celebration of Australia's unique natural heritage. The 1-cent coin featured the feather-tailed glider, the 2-cent a frill-necked lizard, the 5-cent an echidna, the 10-cent a lyrebird, the 20-cent a platypus, and the 50-cent piece initially bore the Commonwealth coat of arms. These iconic designs were the work of Stuart Devlin, a Geelong-born artist who created a cohesive and beautiful set of coins that immediately captured the public imagination and have, for the most part, remained unchanged for over half a century. The original 1966 50-cent coin was round and contained 80% silver. However, as the global price of silver rapidly increased, the metallic value of the coin soon exceeded its face value of 50 cents. This made the coin uneconomical to produce and, well, led to it being hoarded. It was quickly withdrawn from circulation after only 1 year of production. In 1969, it was replaced by the 12-sided or dodecagonal 50-cent coin we know today, struck in a copper-nickel alloy. This change marked the end of circulating silver coinage in Australia and established the 50-cent piece as the perfect canvas for future commemorations. As the 1970s progressed into the 1980s, Australia faced a new monetary challenge. The $1 note, the workhorse of small transactions, was wearing out too quickly. The average lifespan of a paper banknote in constant circulation was less than a year, making it costly for the government to continually print and replace them. A more durable solution was sought, and the obvious answer was to replace the flimsy note with a sturdy coin. The decision was made to introduce a $1 coin, a move that would permanently change the feel of currency in the nation's pockets. After considering various designs, the government selected a now iconic image by Stuart Devlin, the same artist who had designed the original decimal coins. The chosen design was a dynamic and quintessentially Australian scene, a mob of 5 kangaroos bounding across the coin's surface. Released into circulation on the 14th of May 1984, the new $1 coin was golden in colour thanks to its aluminium bronze composition and was an immediate success. The public quickly embraced the convenience and durability of the coin, and the $1 note was gradually withdrawn from circulation. The success of the $1 coin paved the way for a similar change just a few years later. The $2 note was also suffering from the same issues of wear and tear. Following the same logic, the government decided to replace it with a coin as well. The challenge was to create a coin that was easily distinguishable from the $1 coin, both by sight and by touch, to avoid confusion, especially for the visually impaired. The solution was a smaller, thicker coin, also made of aluminium bronze, but with a unique design feature. The design for the $2 coin was entrusted to Horst Hahn, and it carried a profound cultural significance. The reverse features a portrait of a traditional Aboriginal elder set against a backdrop of the Southern Cross constellation and a native grass tree. This design, inspired by a drawing by artist Ainsley Roberts, was a landmark moment. It marked the first time an image representing Aboriginal culture was featured on a standard circulating Australian coin, a significant and long overdue recognition of the nation's First Peoples. The $2 coin was introduced in 1988, coinciding with the bicentennial of European settlement. Both the $1 and $2 coins have become mainstays of Australian currency. Their introduction represented a practical response to the limitations of paper money, but they also provided new canvases for national expression. The mob of Roos dollar and the Aboriginal elder $2 coin are not just units of currency. They are powerful, everyday symbols of Australian fauna and Indigenous heritage, seen and handled by millions of people every single day. They are a constant metallic reminder of the continent's unique identity. By the early 1990s, the two smallest denominations of Australia's currency, the 1 cent and 2 cent coins, were facing an existential crisis. There were two primary problems. The first was inflation. Over the 25 years since their introduction in 1966, the purchasing power of these small coins had been significantly eroded. They bought so little that they were often seen as a nuisance, cluttering up purses and jars, rather than as a useful part of the monetary system. Many people simply didn't bother to use them. The second and more critical problem was the cost of production. The price of copper and other base metals had risen to the point where the metallic value of the 1 and 2 cent coins and the cost of minting and distributing them was actually greater than their face value of 1 and 2 cents. The government was, in effect, losing money on every single copper coin it produced. This situation was economically unsustainable. The logical and inevitable decision was made to take them out of circulation. The announcement was made by the Treasurer in August 1990, with the formal withdrawal commencing in February 1992. The Royal Australian Mint ceased production of both coins, and the public was encouraged to cash in their stockpiles at banks. Huge quantities of the small bronze coins flooded back into the financial system. Tons upon tons of the withdrawn coins were melted down, their metal recycled for other purposes. It was the end of an era for the feathertail glider and the frill-necked lizard, whose images had been a familiar sight for a generation. The removal of the two lowest value coins presented a new challenge: how to handle cash transactions that no longer ended in a neat 5 or 0. A new system was required for final bill totals when paying with cash. The solution was the introduction of a fair rounding system. If a total bill ended in 1 or 2 cents, it would be rounded down to the nearest 0. If it ended in 3 or 4 cents, it would be rounded up to the nearest 5. Totals ending in 6 or 7 cents were rounded down to 5, and those ending in 8 or 9 cents were rounded up to 10. This rounding rule applied only to the final cash total, not to the prices of individual items, and it did not apply to electronic transactions, which could still be processed to the exact cent. The system was simple, fair over time, and quickly adopted by retailers and consumers across the country. The withdrawal of the 1 and 2 cent coins was a pragmatic move that streamlined the currency system, saved the government money, and uncluttered the nation's change. It was a clear demonstration of how a currency system must continually adapt to economic realities. In the 21st century, the role of coinage began to evolve beyond its purely transactional function. With the rise of digital payments, the use of physical cash in daily life started to decline. In response, the Royal Australian Mint began to reposition itself not just as a manufacturer of currency, but as a creator of miniature works of art and collectible national symbols. It embraced innovation with a spirit of creativity, transforming the humble coin into a canvas for technological and artistic expression, primarily for the burgeoning collector market. One of the most significant innovations was the introduction of colour. In 2004, the Mint released Australia's first colour-printed circulating coin, a $1 coin commemorating the 150th anniversary of the Eureka Stockade. This was a remarkable technical achievement, developing a method to apply durable, vibrant colour to the surface of a coin that could withstand the rigours of circulation. This opened up a whole new world of design possibilities. Since then, numerous coloured coins have been released, celebrating everything from Remembrance Day poppies to beloved children's book characters. The Mint's ingenuity did not stop at colour. It began to experiment with the very shape and structure of its coins. In 2012, it released a stunning series of domed silver coins where the metal is curved into a convex shape, giving the design an incredible sense of depth and perspective. These coins, often featuring astronomical themes like constellations of the southern sky, were a global sensation among collectors and showcased the mint's technical prowess. Further innovations included coins shaped like surfboards or even the map of Australia itself. Commemorative coins became a major focus, marking significant anniversaries, celebrating cultural icons and honoring national achievements. The 12-sided 50-cent piece, with its large surface area, became a favorite for these special releases. From the 50th anniversary of the moon landing to the celebration of Indigenous languages, these coins serve as metallic touchstones of Australian history and culture. They are designed not just to be spent, but to be kept, studied and passed down through generations. This modern era of numismatic innovation reflects a deep understanding of the coin's power as a storytelling device. While a standard circulating coin might be seen by millions, a special collector's issue is designed to be looked at closely, to be appreciated for its artistry and the narrative it contains. The Royal Australian Mint has successfully carved out a new niche, ensuring that even in an increasingly cashless world, the physical coin remains a relevant, beautiful and cherished object that captures and preserves the rich tapestry of the Australian story. Since the very first Commonwealth coins were struck in 1910, every Australian coin has featured a portrait or effigy of the reigning British monarch on its obverse or head side. This tradition connects Australia's currency to a lineage stretching back centuries and reflects its status as a constitutional monarchy. For 70 years of that history, one face was a constant familiar presence for generations of Australians, that of Queen Elizabeth II. Her reign was so long that for most people she was the only monarch they had ever seen on their money. Over the course of her long reign, from her coronation in 1952 until her passing in 2022, 5 different official effigies of Queen Elizabeth II graced Australian coinage. The first, a youthful portrait by Mary Gillick, appeared on pre-decimal coins. With the change to decimal currency in 1966, a new portrait by Arnold Machin was introduced. This was followed by the Raphael Macluf effigy in 1985, the Ian Rank Broadley effigy in 1998, and finally the Jodie Clark effigy in 2019. Each new portrait depicted the Queen at a different stage of her life, subtly marking the passage of time on the nation's currency. The passing of Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022 marked the end of a numismatic era. It necessitated, for the first time in 7 decades, a change in the monarch on Australia's coins. Her son, King Charles III, ascended to the throne, and with that, plans were set in motion to create a new royal effigy for the nation's currency. This transition is governed by long-standing tradition and protocol, a carefully managed process undertaken by the Royal Australian Mint in consultation with its British counterpart. One of the most fascinating traditions governing these portraits is that each new monarch is meant to face in the opposite direction to their predecessor. Queen Elizabeth II faced to the right on her coins. Therefore, the new effigy of King Charles III would be designed to face to the left. This practice is said to have started with King Charles II in the 17th century. The official effigy for Commonwealth realms, designed by Dan Thorne of the British Royal Mint, was selected and prepared for its Australian debut. In late 2023, the Royal Australian Mint released the first coins bearing the new portrait of King Charles III, with widespread circulation beginning in 2024. The introduction of this new effigy is a historic moment, a tangible change in the nation's pocket change that reflects a major shift in the monarchy. For the first time in their lives, millions of Australians are seeing a king on their coins instead of a queen. It is a powerful reminder that these small metal discs are not static objects. They are a living history, continually evolving to reflect the times and the enduring traditions that shape the nation. From a desperate measure to halt the flow of rum to the intricate art of a modern coloured coin, The journey of Australian currency is a remarkable chronicle of the nation itself. Each coin, from the crudely pierced holy dollar to the gleaming new effigy of a king, tells a story. It speaks of isolation and ingenuity, of colonial dependence and the forging of a sovereign identity. It tells of the booms and busts, the wars and the celebrations, the societal shifts and the technological advancements that have shaped this continent over more than 2 centuries. These small metallic objects have been witnesses to our history. They have passed through the hands of convicts and governors, gold prospectors and soldiers, merchants and families. They carry the symbols we hold dear. The unique wildlife that defines our natural heritage, the coat of arms that represents our federation, and the image of our first peoples, acknowledging an ancient culture. To hold an Australian coin is to hold a piece of this story, a tangible link to the economic and social fabric of the nation's past and present. As we move further into a digital age, the role of physical currency may continue to change, yet the story etched into these coins remains. They are more than just a means to buy and sell. They are a national gallery in miniature, a portable museum that fits in the palm of your hand. They are a testament to how a nation, born of such unusual circumstances, found its own way, created its own value, and stamped its own unique character onto the very money it uses. The story of Australia is there, if you just know where to look.